Marketing Today is sponsored by Lightmatter. Have you ever wondered how fast growth companies seem to build top-notch software applications so quickly? Or have you ever struggled to get your own company's UX and app to deliver the awesome customer experience you were going for? Yeah, I've been there. That's where Lightmatter comes in. Lightmatter acts as a direct extension of design and development teams at some of the world's top companies. Whether your company needs a website or an app, they can help. The New York Times, Bloomberg, Code Academy, McCann, and dozens of others already trust them. Check them out at lightmatter.com. That's lightmatter.com. Tell them Alan sent you. Marketing Today is going live on Wednesday, November 13th. I want you to join me in Durham, North Carolina, where I interview two amazing marketers. Jake Sorofman, CMO at Pendo, a newly minted unicorn company at $1 billion valuation, and Jim Geike, who's partner at One Better Ventures and has had stints at Burt's Bees, among other consumer-focused companies. So I hope you can join me Wednesday, November 13th, live in Durham, North Carolina with Marketing Today. To register, go to marketingtodaypodcast.com/events. I can't wait to see you in person.
For all of us, it's about predicting where the consumer is going and getting half of it right.
One of the things we want to do is create ads that don't suck.
Embracing change creates great possibility.
I'm Alan Hart, and this is Marketing Today. Today on the show, I've got Justin Parnell. He's the head of brand for Oreo, the senior director on the Oreo brand at Mondelez. And today on the show, we talk about a lot of things related to CPG, how to survive in center store and grocery, which is where Oreo primarily is sold. I mean, how do they survive? And not only survive, but thrive. They're growing so with strong single-digit growth overall at Mondelez and high single-digit growth on the Oreo brand itself. And Oreo is a 100-year-old cookie, frankly. So how do you maintain relevance as culture changes, as your consumer base changes over time, and how do you continue to innovate? So we talk a lot about a lot of different ideas, a lot of campaigns that they've had, how they're achieving those things. And we also touch on some trickier business issues like zero-based budgeting and how Mondelez is actually successful using that approach versus others that we've heard about in the news, if you will, like Kraft Heinz, who's had huge write-downs with their brands and with the acquisitions that have been made. I hope you enjoy this wide-ranging conversation with Justin Parnell. Well, Justin, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, well, we've got a lot to talk about, and I'd love to start with your background and where you started your career and what's been your path towards Mondelez.
Absolutely. So I started my career in advertising out of college. I was an account executive at Gray Advertising, where I worked on the M&M Mars account. And while I was there, I found myself very curious about what was going on in my client's world. And I'd often pick their brains on the day-to-day operations of a brand, what makes a product tick or an innovation successful, and so on. So all that curiosity sort of led me back to business school. And then after getting my graduate degree, I joined Kraft Foods in Chicago, where I started as a junior brand manager on Kraft pasta salads, which I don't even know if it still exists today, but it was a wonderful first brand to start on. And then from there, I sort of worked my way up at Kraft on various brands from Jell-O to Miracle Whip to salad dressings. And after leaving Kraft briefly for a stint at Kellogg's in Michigan in their cereal division, I rejoined Kraft just before we actually split from what we know today as Kraft Foods, Kraft Heinz, when we created Mondelez, which is a global snacking company. And that was about 7 years ago. And it's been an exciting journey at Mondelez. I've had the opportunity to lead global innovation for our crackers portfolio, which includes brands like Ritz and Took outside of the US, to leading the global Oreo brand. And currently, I'm leading the Oreo brand in the US, which is about $1.5 billion brand. And my team and I are responsible for brand building, innovation in the day-to-day commercial operations of the brand.
Well, Justin, going from advertising to CPG, were there any pivotal twists along the way, whether there's different companies or different brands that you worked on?
I'd say in my career, my biggest pivotal twist was actually getting into the advertising business, which is a tough one for a Florida boy to break into. And so I'd say my pivotal twist came early on. I was actually, after graduating college, I had really wanted to work in advertising. And, I was, like I said, I was in Florida, the Tampa Bay area, and it was hard to sort of break into the industry. And I actually had a job lined up to work for Pepsi, selling beverages directly to grocery and convenience stores. And about 2 weeks before my start date, I got a call from Gray Advertising in New York City about a job on their team. And it was like a dream come true for me. So I picked up and moved from Tampa to Manhattan. And that was, I think, the most pivotal experience in my journey. Honestly, it was right from the start. I found my passion for marketing. I loved the industry. I really felt like the luckiest guy in the world to be making $30,000 and living in Manhattan at the time. But it was a really exciting time. And like I just said, once I got into advertising, it was really learning from my clients about their world and what they were experiencing on the brand management side that led me to pursue a job in brand management. And I never had a specific necessarily interest in CPG. It was more like I just wanted to be on the brand side and kind of be challenged with not just communications, but the day-to-day operations and how do we build sustainable long-term brands. That's what kind of led me back to business school and to pursue a role in brand management.
Awesome. Well, that is quite the move to go from Tampa to Manhattan. And luckily you were young enough where you enjoyed the pain of the $30,000 and trying to live in Manhattan.
Yeah. At the time I didn't have anything to compare it to. So it was a wonderful journey.
That's awesome. It's awesome. Well, many big consumer packaged goods brands are struggling today. And in the grocery channel in particular, center store is especially hard. You've got competition from private label, you've got increasing kind of challenge retail environment from what I call hard discounters. Those are like Aldi or Trader Joe's. And Mondelez, you guys seem to be faring very well, despite the headwinds. You've got strong organic growth, and Oreo in particular, I think, has got high single digit growth, if I've got that right, at least globally. Yep. And so my question, I guess, is more a question of like, how does a CPG brand not just survive, but grow in an environment like that?
Yeah, it's a big challenge, but it's one we all have to take on. And I think I'd start by saying it's about staying relevant. I mean, the brands that are winning in the CPG space, I think, continue to evolve based on how consumer lifestyles are shifting, how consumer needs are changing. You see that in how they're evolving their products in their portfolio. You see it in how they're changing and experimenting with new ways to connect with consumers, based on how the media landscape is changing. So I think just like not being afraid of change and actually taking it head on in an effort to stay relevant is really what's separating those brands that are succeeding from those that are struggling. I think also, importantly, as a part of that, I think the brands that are doing really well place a premium on being distinctive. We all know consumers are being bombarded by messages in today's world. And I think the brands that are providing entertaining, disruptive content are standing out and really earning the precious attention of consumers. I've actually heard the CEO at our advertising agency, the Martin Agency, Kristen Cavalos, has said a couple times to me that it's not enough to be right. Right can be ignored. And I love that, because so many brands are doing a lot of the right things, but in a world where consumer indifference is at an all-time high, we really have to fight invisibility. We have to fight to get noticed. And that's so important. And it hits home for me, as it should any sort of modern day marketer, that we can't just have great strategies and great insights. We have to be able to execute them in a way that drives disruption and can be distinctive. And that's something we're certainly trying to do on Oreo. And then finally, I mean, super important is, I think brands have to be evolving based on how consumers are buying products.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I think particularly in the CPG world, we're seeing major shifts in channels. You know, consumers are buying more and more online. They're turning to click and collect, right, where they're buying. You know, they're picking up directly from the store. That's going to continue to evolve and change, and I think the winning brands are going to be those that are really kind of on the forefront of that change in how consumers are buying our brands and products.
Interesting. Well, I want to, there's a couple follow-ups potentially, but before I go there, you've been leading Oreo brand for a number of years. It's 100-year-old cookie at the end of the day, right? It's a cookie, and you guys have an unbelievable ability to maintain your cultural relevance as a cookie.
Yeah.
And how do you do that? How does a cookie be culturally relevant, I guess?
It's a good question, and it's been an effort from teams over, I think, many decades that have made the right decisions that have enabled us to maintain relevancy, which is hard for a 100-plus-year-old brand. I'd start by saying we've continued to sort of evolve our portfolio and expand it to meet consumer needs. So while that iconic, black and white sandwich cookie is the classic, and it will continue to be our best-selling product, and it's really the signature of the brand, if you look at what we offer consumers today, it's a wide array of choices for different occasions, life stages, or preferences. So, take for instance, we have Oreo Minis, which appeals to families with younger kids who want a convenient on-the-go snack, something that's easy to kind of take with you in the car as you're running off to baseball practice or guitar lessons.
Right.
On the other end of the spectrum, one of our most successful innovations in the past decade has been Oreo Thins, which appeals to more to adults who love Oreo, but they're looking for sort of a lighter, as we say, more permissible, a bit more sophisticated Oreo, if you will. And so you can kind of see how our portfolio has evolved to really offer our fans like the Oreo that they love, they desire, based on whatever kind of life stage they're at. So we talk about, we want to grow with them. And we need to make sure, of course, we're always creating those moments with the classic cookie that they yearn for and they love, but also we're kind of have the right product pack format and experience that they need. So I think that's super important. I would also say, I was just talking about relevancy and the importance of, getting noticed and connecting with consumers in a meaningful way. And that has also been a big priority for us. If you look over just the last decade, I think we've been pretty aggressive about establishing a strong social presence. We were one of the kind of the pioneering brands, I'd say, in connecting with consumers via real-time, always-on marketing in the social space. If you kind of think back at our Super Bowl Dunk in the Dark post or the Daily Twist, which we did to celebrate our 100th birthday back in 2012, those are examples of, I think, really trying to lead the way as brands were figuring out social. Today, we're continuing to evolve how we connect with consumers. In fact, just last week, we launched our first voice-activated program with Amazon's Alexa. So customers can now ask Alexa, ask her directly what's new with Oreo, and they'll hear the latest news about the brand, including new flavor launches or product innovations, and they can actually order Oreos directly from Amazon through the voice interface. Wow. So it's pretty cool for us. We actually, if you want to explore it later, Alan, you can ask Amazon about the mystery Oreo flavor that we just launched, and she will give you some clues. So it's just a cool way to engage with our fans on an ongoing basis to keep them excited about our products. And then the last thing I would say on this, because I think there's an important kind of last component here about how we've maintained cultural relevance, is tapping into the passion points of our fans and what's happening in culture. Some of our biggest successes lately have been when we latch on to what our fans care most about. So an example earlier this year is when we launched Game of Thrones Oreo, which included specially designed Oreo cookies based on the houses vying for the Iron Throne. And of course, as you know, that was really a cultural phenomenon. And we launched the product with a recreation of the famous opening credits of Game of Thrones that we made out of nearly 3,000 Oreo cookies. And it was just a massive hit among the fans of Oreo and the fans of Game of Thrones. So I think it's that's just one example, but we've done a lot of that over the years of kind of really scouring what's happening in culture that our fans are going to be talking about that Oreo can sort of add a playful twist to. And that's been really a key element of our strategy to keep our fans engaged in this 100-year-old brand.
I love it. I love it. And I'm glad you mentioned the Game of Thrones. And I need to go ask Alexa about this mystery flavor, apparently.
Yeah,
too.
go try it. I want to hear your guess.
And all this talk about Oreos, I'm going to have to hit the convenience store on the way home today.
Absolutely.
And pick up a little 6-pack or something. But well, one thing that I've always kind of admired Mondelez for in the last number of years really is, the focus or I don't know if it's a focus, but just the ability to have inclusion and diversity at the core of some of your campaigns. Oreo is known from the rainbow cookie from years ago to Honey Maid, maybe a little bit more recently. But how do you think about incorporating diversity and inclusion into your brand story? And because it could go so badly, and we've seen in other brands and that are out in the marketplace, but you guys always seem to pull it off. So I'm just curious how you think about it.
Inclusivity, it's a core part of who we are. I think we're America's favorite cookie, and I think with that, we have a responsibility to be representative of the audience that we serve. We're a brand that is for everyone, beloved by most. And I think it's really recognizing that we serve an incredibly diverse population, and we know it will continue to be more and more diverse. I was actually just in a trends meeting last week, and a stat was shared that over half of Generation Z are racial or ethnic minorities. So you just see the shifts in our demographic that are happening. And like I said, it's so important that brands are representative and that we as a brand are representative of that population moving forward. We actually talk a lot on Oreo about families, as you might imagine. And it's so fascinating to hear consumers talk about, when we ask them, like, what is a family today? And the whole idea of sort of a typical like nuclear family, it's not even so relevant to people. They can't even relate to it. Like the modern family it comes in all different forms, and from the predominance of single families to same-sex parents to you're seeing more and more grandparents playing an active role in parenting. So even like as we think about the types of moments that Oreo is consumed in, and like what is actually defines a family, it has evolved so much over the last decade plus, and it's going to continue to evolve. So I think for us, it's about really continuing to recognize that we have to really understand this audience and be true to this audience and serve them in the right way. And I think for us, it's like one thing that really I believe is that we as marketers can make an impact on the world and setting a tone for greater inclusivity and representation. And an example I think we're sharing with you is earlier this year, you might be familiar, we launched our new campaign, Stay Playful. And we did it with hip hop artist Wiz Khalifa and his 5-year-old son, Sebastian. And I was actually surprised by all the praise and attention we received for featuring a Black father and his son in the kind of moment that we were portraying. And I think it was most proud when Sean Combs, or P. Diddy, as he's otherwise known as, tweeted out, and he actually saluted Oreo for getting the narrative right and showing the love between Black fathers and their sons. And he went on to say it's so important and needed in this world. And it was interesting because we didn't actually set out to make that point. I mean, we were just telling a genuine story of a father and his son that happens to be representative of a segment of our audience. But it reinforced to me how important it is to not like fall into stereotypes and really be true to the audience that we serve. And so like my advice to my team and any other marketer is that we have to continue to like embrace this diversity, understand this consumer base, be representative. And I'd say not only in how we market, but also be representative in the teams that we build in our companies and in our brands and the partners we seek out. We need to ensure that we're being representative across the board. And so I think, to me that it's certainly a passion point for me. And I think it's something that, we will continue to do on Oreo. And I would encourage, peers in the industry to do. And I think we're making really good strides as an industry. And finally, the other thing I would say is, it's interesting. I think we've evolved quite a bit our thinking around multicultural marketing. And I'm doing air quotes that you can't see. But I think, we used to think about multicultural marketing as a certain part of our marketing plans, right? It's sort of the thing that you do in addition to your general market plan. And I think that is such an outdated idea. I think we are marketing to a multicultural world. The general market is multicultural, and we have to shift our mindset accordingly. So everything that we're doing is with the lens of this very diverse and this diverse and varied market that we serve. So,
right. No, I think probably at the heart of what makes you guys successful is what you just said, which is, reflecting back, if you will, modern day society, and not putting it through some sort of filter lens, so to speak, in my
Absolutely.
words. But just reflecting who people are. So I applaud you guys for your efforts because it comes off great. Even when you, like you described, even when you're not really setting out to make a point, just by inclusion, you're able to benefit from that, right? And other people are as well from seeing themselves reflected in your campaigns. So that's awesome. So, I know digital marketing obviously is, I almost hate using the word digital marketing these days because it's just marketing. It's another form, it's another factor, but it gets so much airtime lately. And I know you guys are doing a lot in the area. So just curious, what's the latest that you're working on, and any thoughts about how marketers should be thinking about using those tools?
Yeah, I think that the biggest change that we've made in the last 12 months is we recognized that we had to make a big shift in our capability or ways of working to do like really great, always on digital marketing, for lack of a better word. And so we set up a dedicated team in East Hanover, our headquarters, of social strategists and content creators to be like scouring the social landscape for trending topics that may be relevant to our brand, to understand, how consumers are chatting about us, how influencers are chatting about us, and actively responding to consumers. And it's not to say that we just weren't doing this. I mean, we had been doing it for years, but I think it's the level of the scale to which we're doing it now and the intention that we have to really be more, engaged in what's happening minute by minute and have the right resources and team in place to respond has been a big shift for us in the last 12 months. And the results have been outstanding. I mean, we've seen our earned impressions and engagement skyrocket. And I think I'd say from a very strong base, we weren't starting off in our infancy by any means. But I think being able to be more responsive, to respond to more consumers on a bigger scale has been pretty game changing for us, and it's something we're continuing to learn and refine as we move forward. So I think that's been sort of a big shift for us. I'd also, like I gave the example of voice activation. I think we're continuing to challenge ourselves and our partners on how will consumers continue to, well, how will they continue to evolve and change in terms of how they connect with brands, and what are the things that we need to be experimenting with and placing bets on, so that we're on kind of the forefront of those changes in how consumers will engage in the future. So that's an always on. That's kind of a mindset that we adopt. That we're always kind of we're curious, and we're always asking questions about how the market's going to evolve. I think learning about what are the new platforms or companies out there that are leading the way and how consumers will engage in the future. And like I said, the word experiment, that's really important for us, that we're continuing to try new things, and some will fail, but some, will pay dividends as we move into the future.
That's awesome. And, to be 24/7, like you said earlier, that's a hard thing for big companies to do, just because of the natural inclinations of approvals and things like that happen inside. Any tips on how you were able to do that?
Yes, I think probably the biggest unlock has been working with our corporate affairs and legal teams to define sort of rules of the road, like what type of topics or responses require a more rigorous approval process versus what we can just, give our social strategists and content creators liberty to react in real time. Because there are going to be those issues that come up where we need to, be much more comprehensive in our thoughts and our approaches to how we respond to ensure that we're reacting in the most appropriate way. But there's most of the opportunities out there in the social world we can respond really quickly on, and we don't need to kind of have all the red tape, so to speak. So I think it's been putting in place protocols within our organization and with our agency partners that enable speed. And there's really clear ways of working. And I think that has probably been one of the biggest enablers to increasing our kind of volume of social engagement and interaction out there.
Right. Okay. Good. Well, we've talked about this, but you're a 100-year-old cookie brand. You're constantly trying to, I'm sure, reinvigorate the new consumers, if you will, the younger groups that are coming in. Like most companies are chasing that demographic, and this seems to be, you seem to be doing it really well. So I'm curious, like, what's working for you to attract those younger demographics?
Yeah, so we're super proud of the stat. I have to share it, that we're the number one food and beverage brand among Generation Z, according to YPulse in a Google survey that came out. So that's something we're super proud of. And it's because we are a 100-plus-year-old brand, and we have this wide array of appeal from boomers all the way to Gen Z. As we think, particularly about what's really working with Gen Z, I would say it starts from this place of like they crave experiences. Like they want to try the new thing and share it on social media and talk about it. They kind of thrive on variety and news, and so we've literally given them new experiences through our product. So we churn out limited edition Oreos throughout the year, and they are particularly I think they're hit across our audience, but particularly among Gen Zs. And we have a high bar. We want to make sure that every product that we put out is delivering either an on-trend flavor or some kind of unexpected, surprising experience. Some examples include one of my favorites is Fireworks Oreo, where we actually put Pop Rocks candy in the Oreo cream. So we said, we've done the whole July 4th, summer celebration kind of flavors. What can we really do to kind of up the bar and make it more exciting? So, of course, put Pop Rocks in the cream. So, we just launched Moon Landing Oreo to celebrate the anniversary of the Apollo landing on the moon. And for that, we had a marshmallow moon cream and our first glow-in-the-dark packaging. Of course, I talked earlier about partnerships where we'll do things like Game of Thrones Oreos. that kind of taps into a big entertainment property or cultural moment that's happening. So those are the types of things that we continue to do to engage our product. We say that like we're a playful brand, and we're playful with the world, encourage the world to be playful with us. And I think an important part of that is actually being playful with our product. And so I think, Gen Zers in particular, they just love when we do this. I think also it's being active, like we were just talking about social media, like creating the right process internally and resource structure internally that enables us to be active always in social media. They expect brands to be authentic, to be responsive. They want content that is unique and engaging. So we're working hard to continue to do that. And I think, we have to be cool at the end of the day, like our creative and like what we put out in the market, they've got a strong filter, for what is like cool and genuine and what's not. And so we spend a lot of time thinking about, are we making the right decisions in terms of the products that we're delivering, the types of communications that we're putting out in the market, the types of properties that we're partnering with or celebrities that we're using. We really kind of want to make sure that it has the kind of cool cred among this audience that is going to build in sort of our brand equity.
Well, there's probably been, I'd say at least 15 or 20 ideas that you've thrown out that you've executed.
Mm-hmm.
Where are you getting all of these ideas?
Oh, they're from all over. We've had ideas come from fans. We've had ideas come from our retail partners, of course, agency partners. And we have great agency partners that bring us a lot of ideas. But I would say we've developed this kind of culture that embraces ideas and creativity. And I think that's super important, that people, no matter where you are functionally or what level you're at, you feel that you can share ideas openly. And it's something that we really pride ourselves on. I mentioned flavors because I think that's a very, specific, like when we do Oreo flavors or limited editions, right. We have a very specific, model in place there because we always have to be churning out new flavors. It's really a big part of our commercial and sales plans. So in that case, we've dedicated a fully resourced team whose job is just to gen up exciting new flavors ideas. So it's a team of marketers, product developers, researchers, and they're closely monitoring trends in the culinary world from kind of what are the emerging new dessert flavors, interesting combinations that are happening. And this team will prototype and screen over 50 ideas per year. And after pretty rigorous testing, they'll land in about a dozen that will hit the market in a given year. And some of those will be permanent flavors. Some of them will be kind of limited editions that are in the market for 4 to 6 weeks. But in that case, we needed to ensure that we had like a very defined kind of model and team in place that could be able to continue to develop new ideas year on year and that were exciting to our retailers and consumers. But I would just say across the board, we're always we're always challenging ourselves for interesting idea. And I would say our issue is not ideas. my issue is more like, oh my gosh, there's so many ideas, and how do we prioritize the right ones and go chase that and not lose focus? I think that's probably more of the conversations that we have on a day-to-day basis.
That's a good place to be. That's a good place to be. Well, you've mentioned a couple of times, and I know, that you mentioned a couple of times that you're changing the product itself as well, whether it's a packaging change or whether it's a new flavor or new imprint in the cookie itself. That can be really tough, especially in a manufacturing setup where you've got lines that have to be changed when you want to make a big change. But you've been able to capitalize on this stuff really quickly. So like Game of Thrones, I think I may have this wrong, but I want to say it was like a 3-month window that you had that you could capitalize on that. So how do you do this so fast?
Yeah, I think you're right on Game of Thrones. That was probably our fastest speed to market in all time, and we were able to commercialize it in about 3 months, which is sort of unheard of. We try not to do that. I would say we try to plan
Yeah.
for the best we can. We try to plan out, and but we want to be reactive when a great idea comes to us that we really can't say no to. We want to be able to have the ability to react in the most impactful way, and so we have sort of set up a process that enables us to be more agile. We kind of have the fast track lane on the highway that we can put projects on, where we actually have defined, okay, if we want to affect the product itself, here are the timelines, like the minimum timelines if we want to change the cookie or develop a new cream or developing a package innovation. So we've gotten actually very specific about, from like a toolkit standpoint, around what types of changes we can make based on the timeline that we're looking at. And we've really challenged ourselves to take out barriers in the process of developing new items, to say, like, how can we speed things up, with our suppliers internally. And that's been important for us, because sometimes in legacy companies, and most people can relate to this, right? Like, over time, you just kind of have a way that you've done things for years and years and years. And, a lot of times, incidentally, because we've had an opportunity come, we've had to challenge all of those norms. And now we're trying to say, okay, we know these opportunities are going to continue to come. So let's go ahead and challenge them now, and have, fast track processes in place that will enable us to be faster than our competitors, and ultimately deliver things that consumers will love. And so I really, give a hand to our teams that have continued to kind of push ourselves on how do we evolve kind of our commercialization timelines and processes to get to market even faster.
I love it. Well, I want to ask you one more question. It came up earlier in my mind, and I want to circle back to it now, because we're talking about the business and changing the business processes and things like that. And zero-based budgeting has gotten a lot of play, especially with Kraft Heinz. And I don't want you to have to comment on that, but I believe Mondelez, at least historically, has used zero-based budgeting approaches. And I'm just curious, like, you guys are so successful, right? And then you see other examples that maybe are less successful. Is there a way in which the philosophy that you're taking to approach that's different in your mind than what you see, everyone talking about in the marketplace?
Yeah. At the end of the day, we're focused on ROI. And that really is the objective that we talk about, right? Is that we want to year on year be increasing our return on marketing investment. And how we do that is sort of a canvas, right? So we don't necessarily say that it's every year we have to be driving out X amount in non-working costs or this amount in media efficiency. Of course, those are levers, but we're really pushing ourselves to say, if we develop a more impactful social media response model, if we develop a stronger campaign or better limited edition model, that can be your building block to increase return on investment as a brand. And so it hasn't just been about slashing costs. It's really been about driving impact. In certain areas, there might be fat, in our budgets that we can challenge. But overall, it's really about creating greater impact that's going to increase sales, build our brand equity. And that's really the focus. I think with the companies that have, I won't name them, but I think where it hasn't worked out so well is when it's a pure efficiency productivity play. And that's been a challenge, I would say, for the industry, right? We've all kind of been pushed in that direction. And it's not to say there wasn't some, and this is just my perspective on it, that there wasn't some value from that, because it did make us challenge where maybe we had, sort of lost sight of some diligence around cost, and it kind of challenged us to sort of tighten our budgets. But it helped in many cases to improve our gross margins that help us, spend back in innovation and advertising. But overall, I think, it's really about what are we going to do to drive impact. And that's going to continue to be the focus for us ongoing.
Okay, got it. Well, I've got a few questions. I love to get to know the person behind all the business stuff that we cover. And so my first question I love asking is there an experience of your past that defines or makes up who you are today?
Yeah, I was a competitive gymnast growing up, and that was a really, I think, formidable experience for me. I think gymnastics, you could argue it is a team sport. It's I'd say it's more of an individual sport where it requires. Well, certainly I learned a lot of the value of persistence and hard work. I was training, 25 hours a week or more, in the gym. I had a bunch of injuries that I had to work through in my journey. I was competing at a high level, and it just constantly challenged me to stay, diligent and focused on my goals and objectives. And I think that has sort of stuck with me in my career life. It's, I often lean back on the lessons I learned while I was a gymnast. It really helps for me to stay focused on being better day in and day out, and help me work through adversity that I face.
Yeah, I can imagine it's a lot of grit to get through the days of long trainings and things like that.
For
You take
sure.
those lessons. Yeah. Well, what fuels you? What keeps you going these days?
I mean, definitely my family fuels me. I have uh, a wife, a 10-year-old son, and an 8-year-old daughter. And so I love spending time with them. Actually, my son and I just this past summer, we joined a water skiing competition team in our town, which is kind of unique, I would say. I never thought I'd be on a water skiing competition team, but he was really passionate about it. And he joined the team, and halfway through the summer they convinced me to kind of get out there as well, and it's been something that we really have found a passion for and enjoy together. And so I love getting out there with him, and obviously we're in the fall now, so that's coming to an end, but that's been super fun. I just love watching my daughter, whether it be in dance or music, or taking my son out to the ball field. All that's the stuff that really drives me and keeps me going day in and day out.
Got it. Well, marketers tend to be kind of students of what's going on around them in the world. We've talked about cultural relevancy in one question earlier. Are there any brands or companies or causes that you follow or you think other people should be taking notice of?
I think that there's so much happening right now in the food world, right? And I think it's I can't speak to a specific brand, but I would say there's some
Right.
trends happening that I certainly have my eye on, and I mean, one of those is really how consumers, it's been happening for a while, but they're shifting from sort of the old kind of paradigm of weight management to health management. So they have this broader definition of well-being, and that includes mental, emotional, spiritual well-being, and that's having pretty big implications, I would say, for the food industry. And I'm continuing. I'm very curious and continue to kind of have my my pulse on kind of how that's going to evolve. And I think people, they're looking for new ways to sort of manage their diets, to be more mindful in their lives. And I think that's gonna be a pretty big shift that we in the industry have to stay attuned to. I mentioned this earlier. I think the way people are buying is continuing to evolve, and I think of course, there's the giants like Amazon that are leading the way in that shift, but there's also smaller players popping up that are providing new solutions for consumers, whether it be getting products in a more sustainable way through e-commerce channels. That I think could have promise in the future. That'll certainly make a change. I think food tech is a it's kind of a buzzword, but I think there's a lot of innovation and new companies popping up around food tech that could be very interesting, I think, and could be change agents in our industry. So I think that there's just a lot, I think, just happening from a trend standpoint, where you have smaller companies sort of experimenting based on those trends.
Got it. Cool. Well, I have one idea for you, and you can take it or leave it. And I won't take any royalties, I promise. And now you have me on tape saying that. But you should partner with another guest that's been on the show from My Mochi ice cream and come up with an Oreo mochi ice cream
I'm
flavor.
always
Yeah,
up for making a new connection. So
yeah, yeah.
you'll have to get me
I'll
give
get
me
you
the contact.
connected. I'll get you connected with Russell. Yeah, he's great, and I want an Oreo mochi. So you guys have to figure that out. Um, but last question for you on a serious note:
Hmm.
what do you feel the future of marketing is going to look like?
Oh, that's a good question. We're going to continue to see at the pace we're seeing today, or if not faster, kind of the media landscape evolve. I think we're going to see sales channels continue to evolve. I think it's going to happen dramatically. And so I think that's going to change. We're going to have, I think, certainly advances in things like machine learning, and we talk a lot about advances in programmatic and what that means, for the TV moving forward. And I think those are all going to be really big shifts for us. At the end of the day, I think you just can't replace the importance of big ideas in marketing. And I think because we're always going to be faced with new ways to connect and engage with our consumers, but we always have to come back to really brilliant marketing ideas. I mentioned earlier about the importance of being disruptive. And I think that always comes back to, do you have an idea that is distinctive, that consumers are going to find engaging? And that there will be implications on how you deliver that message or engage and interact with consumers. But I think we always have to kind of keep our eye on, do we have great insights that lead to great ideas? And that kind of gets back to the fundamentals of marketing that I think are tried and true. And I mention that because I think sometimes we often talk about the huge changes that are going to happen, and we can get really enamored by data and machine learning and all these different things. And those can be means to which we do our jobs really well. But we can't lose sight on the importance of having great strategy and big ideas to drive our brand. So I think, as I think about the future of marketing, brands that win will continue to be those brands that place an importance on those and do it, in a world-class way.
I feel like I should say amen. So thank you. It's been enlightening to have you on, and I totally agree with you on not losing sight of the core fundamentals of marketing as we move forward in the future. So thank you so much for coming on the show, Justin.
Thanks a lot, Alan. I enjoyed it.
Hi, it's Alan again. Marketing Today was created and produced by me. If you're new to Marketing Today, please feel free to write us a review on iTunes or your favorite listening platform. Don't forget to subscribe and tell your friends and colleagues about the show. I love to hear from listeners, and you can contact me at marketingtodaypodcast.com. There you'll also find complete show notes with links to anything we talk about on any episode. You can also search our archives. I'm Alan Hart, and this is Marketing Today. Today's podcast is brought to you by Audible. You can get a free audio download and 30-day free trial at audibletrial.com/Alan. And Alan is spelled ALAN for those that don't know. Again, audibletrial.com/Alan. Do you struggle to get your website or app to deliver the awesome customer experience you were looking for? That's where Lightmatter comes in. Bloomberg and McCann already trust them. Visit lightmatter.com. That's LIGHTMATTER.com. And tell them Alan sent you.